I like dogs. Having said that, talking about being present means many things for different people, especially now and especially on Zoom. So I want to say, show up as you are. Maybe you're cooking right now. Okay, maybe you haven't eaten yet. Maybe you are in your bed, literally in your underwear, eating. Literally. I have done that before. Of course, we might, right? Like, I'm like, camera off, because I don't want to see anybody, I don't want people to see me like uh, eating my wonderful hamburger, right? But why is that? Because of the expectations of professionalism. So in this space, I want to encourage you to be free of those expectations of what we call professionalism. So maybe you are in bed with your blanket and you want your camera turned on, but you feel shame or embarrassed. Turn on the camera and let me see your blanket. Maybe it's a cute blanket. Maybe I want to buy the blanket too. I like blankets. And maybe not. Maybe you still don't want your camera on. That's fine. Maybe your dog wants to show up on the Zoom. Maybe your cat wants to show up in the Zoom. That's fine. It's fine. I can see your cat and your dog. That's fine. Maybe you move a lot. Maybe you have fidget spinners. That's fine. Move, walk, show up as you are, because who you are is good. And we are here to dialogue, and people dialogue in different ways. So maybe you use the chat. Feel free to use the chat as I talk. Maybe you don't use the chat. Maybe you wanna talk. Well, let me know in the chat. Maybe write the word ready to say, I wanna talk. I wanna take space. That is okay. Maybe you don't wanna talk at all. That is also okay. Everyone has different ways of showing up. Now, having said that, who am I? Like, why are you telling us this? Who are you? Like, I have never seen you before. Please introduce yourself. Yeah, I'm seeing your comments. I forgot all about fidget spinners. Yeah, so fidget spinners are actually access tools. Many people use them. They feel good using them. They feel better. They need to move. That's fine. My brother still has so many, so I always steal his. Community, right? This is how we do community. Just steal each other's fidget spinners, right? Anyhow, so a little bit about me. I have moved on from summarizing my whole resume to basically say that I'm worthy of space. So I am not going to tell you my bio. I'm still going to tell you my intersectionality. So that way you know where I'm coming from. That way you know the dynamics that I will be bringing as a facilitator to this dialogue. And by intersectionality, I mean that we all hold multiple identities that interact with each other at all times. So I'm here talking to you, and I represent many things and many systems, and I cannot choose one over the other. So for instance, there are identities that I hold that have been historically oppressed and that are still oppressed, unfortunately. So for instance, I am Dominican. I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic. I moved to the US 12 years ago. I identify as Latina and Afro-Caribbean. I am also first gen, and I'm also low income. English is my second language. My first language is Spanish. And I have mental health issues or mental health disabilities. I suffer from depression, anxiety, and have suicidal thoughts periodically. Now, I also hold privileged identities. That means that I got a ton of advantage in terms of my identity as cisgender. So for instance, I identify as a female, and that identification matches the category that the doctor, the healthcare system decided to place on me when I was born based on my genitals. And because of that, I have a ton of privilege, especially in the healthcare system. I'm also straight or heterosexual. That means that I am attracted to the opposite sex, and society says that that is the norm and that that is the only good way to be attracted to someone. I'm also able-bodied, so I don't have to think about universal design. I can go to a space and not think about really anything. No, nothing, like not even wheelchair spaces, nothing. I am able to go to a space and I don't have to ask about access points or anything. I can just assume that all spaces are fit for my body. I'm also agnostic, and I could go into the definition of agnostic. I will not. I just place it there to say that I am not affiliated to a religion that is persecuted. That's basically what I'm trying to say when saying that I'm agnostic. Well, so having talked about my multiple identities, I also want to tell you a little bit about Estoy Aquí. Estoy Aquí is an initiative that I created a year ago. And I basically created it based on my story with mental health and suicidality. So basically, I provide racial justice training and intergroup dialogue to spread awareness about the social and cultural factors that influence suicide in the Latinx and Black community. And so part of that work is talking about advocacy and activism in multiple systems, specifically in mental health. Now, having said that, yes, I see the dog. Yes, beautiful dog. So having said that, before we speak about this model that I said at the beginning we were going to talk about, I want to ask you the question: what do you think about when hearing the words activism? When someone says, "I am an activist," what do you think about? What are the words, phrases, quotes, the people that come to mind? Maybe you identify as an activist. So what does that mean to you when you say that you're an activist? Feel free to use the chat, write as much as you want. Also, feel free to unmute yourself if you want to express the answer, orally. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen and I will write the question in the chat. Feel free to answer. I see an answer. It says intense, passionate, making changes. Activism is also misunderstood. Someone always at the forefront of making changes. So I see the word changes a lot, and I wonder if we could expand on that. So what type of changes? What does that mean? What does changes mean? You said,
I guess just changes would be, like good changes or like, I guess any like human rights violations, whether they be like really big or in a really like micro level, but just making positive changes that affect the community.
Got it. So I see like systemic change, community change, right? Right. Yeah, political and social changes for the better of society. Right. But I also see the comment, activism is also misunderstood. Can you expand a little bit? Amy?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes, Amy.
Perfect.
Thank you. Well, I have a question actually. So I'm going to be a social worker, you know, and it's all about advocacy. I mean, it's a code of ethics. My question is activism. How is it compared to advocacy? What's the difference?
Oh, what is the difference between activism and advocacy? So from my point of view, they are literally the same. But we're going to talk about, because when you are doing activism, you are advocating for something, meaning you are sending the message that this is something you should be paying attention to, and that this is something that needs change. So that's my definition, by the way, of what advocacy is. So to me, every time you do an activist action, which we're going to talk about, like what is that? What is an activist action? You are advocating for something to be better, to improve, to change, because you believe it is an issue. Did that make sense?
Yes, thank you. I think then what I meant that is I think activism and being an activist sounds kind of extreme, but like advocacy sounds more polite. So I think maybe that's how I see it in society.
Well, that is a very interesting point. Very interesting point. Like, yeah, like which one is more accepted or politically correct? Let's say which one is the most acceptable? Like if you're in the workplace and you say you're an activist, what are people gonna think? That you're violent? That you're gonna create trouble? That you're gonna call out people? But if you say I'm an advocate, that means, oh, so you care about things. That's great. That is a very good point. Thank you so much for bringing that up. What does everyone else think about that point?
I wanted to share a comment after I hear what you all share, because it's so true. I feel like historically an activist is known to be disruptive, right? They go and disrupt something, while the advocate actually does it the right way, right? The legal way, the proper way. And then, but I agree. I mean, I think it's the same thing. So I'm really loving this conversation already.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Thank you so much for that point, because we're gonna talk exactly about that. So it's like the perfect segue to what's next. So, fun fact, I started to identify as an activist 1 year ago, even though I have 10 years of experience being an activist. So if you have asked me, a year ago, are you an activist? I would have said no, even though I have like 10 years of activism experience. Now, why is that? What we were talking about, the typical image of an activist in the media is of a disruptor, of the frontliner. And we're going to talk about what those things mean. But the person in the protest, the person organizing marches, you see the pictures, the person with the megaphone, the person with the microphone, people literally in the front lines. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. My message, what I am saying is that is not the only way of being an activist. That is what I'm trying to say, right? And so, well, how did I find that out? Like, how did I come to that realization? I found this document, the social change ecosystem map. I found this document on Facebook because it went viral. So it went viral this summer where George Floyd was murdered, because people started to organize across the world, not only in the United States, but across the world. The Black Lives Matter movement resurfaced because it had been created for many years before that, but it resurfaced, right? And people started to go to protest. The people around me, all of my friends, all of them started to organize protests, going to protests, and I wasn't. And I kept hearing comments on Facebook from my friends saying things like, oh, there are always people preaching about social justice or saying they're allies, and you don't see them in the protests. What is that? That's fake. So I thought, oh crap, they're talking about me, right? Because I am not in the protest. I am not taking pictures of the protest because I'm not there. So I guess I am a bad ally. I guess I am not doing the work. I am a hypocrite. And now I found this document and thought, holy crap. I feel so relieved because I was like, oh my God, I am an activist. I am showing up. I just didn't have the language to identify that I was an activist. So what is this amazing document that I'm talking about? So Deepa Iyer from the Build a Movement Project created this map to basically identify multiple categories of activism because of the same reasoning that I was talking about. Many people believe that the only people that really have the right to call themselves activists are the disruptors and the frontline responders, when in reality, there is way more roles out there that many of us already doing, but do not call ourselves activists, right? So we have the weavers, the experimenters, the frontline responders, the visionaries, the builders, the caregivers, the disruptors, which we mentioned before, disruptors, the healers, the storytellers, the guides, right? So what do all of these terms mean, right? So there are actually definitions for each of this, and they're all in this guide by Deepa, created by Deepa, which I will share at the end. But right now, just to plant the seed, these are the definitions for each one. So Deepa said there are people who are weavers. And who are the weavers? Hence the word weaving, right? These are people who see through the lines of connectivity. They look at people, places, organizations, ideas, and movements. They're able to connect people like, it's just the most amazing thing. They're networkers, right? These are the people who you see everywhere, and they are the people who say your name. Like, you know that they know someone who is good at this. They know they know this organization. Hey, I can connect you to this organization via email, messenger. Anyhow, they're always like taking the initiative to connect people and organizations because they believe in collaboration. They believe in the fact that if we move forward, we're gonna move forward collectively, and so we need to know each other, right? Then we have the experimenters. These are people who innovate, pioneer, invent. They create things from scratch. They're not afraid of taking risk, right? Or let me rephrase that. They might be afraid of taking risks, but they take them regardless of the fear because they know it is worth doing, right? And they understand that whatever thing they do, so an initiative, starting a GoFundMe, whatever it is, they know that mistakes can happen and they're open to feedback. Experimenters are open to hearing literally criticism, and they're able to correct these things as they go, right? Then we have the frontline responders. So these are the people who I mentioned who are usually in the media, right? They're usually shown in the newspapers. They are shown with a megaphone. So these are people who address community crisis. Like, they go in the middle of it. They go in the middle of the fight. So you can see marshals, for instance, if you see the protests and marches, the other people that are marshals that are looking, is there what's going on? They're very observant, and are able to act fast, right? And there are also people who organize resources. So they are the people who, organize the Excel sheet with the name of the organizations, the phone numbers, and they're the ones that, basically spread the Excel sheet, the Google Docs, right? They are the ones who know what's going on in the community and let people know, hey, if you need this, this is available. If you need food, this is the place where you can get food, and they don't require ID or anything like that. Like, they don't only know about the resources, but they know like everything, like requirements, the people behind the resource. So they have networks. They maintain networks in order to spread that message, and they use multiple tools, email, social media, etc. Then there are also the visionaries. Visionaries, hence the word visionaries, they imagine. Their work is to imagine the impossible. So these are people who you see talking about defunding the police, right? People who talk about things that in society you're like, that's never gonna happen, bro. What are you talking about? Who's gonna defund police? No, these are people who are like, oh no, this is this is possible. Defunding the police, let's do it. And they you see them in meetings talking about it. You see them everywhere talking about these things that, again, society deems impossible because of the system itself, right? And so they think about, they're bold, they're very bold, and they really think about, their whole thing is guided by hopes and dreams in the most beautiful way. In the most beautiful way. And they also redirect the movement. Like, remember, this is why we're here. Remember, this is the goal. Those are the visionaries, people who remind you why you're here, why are we doing the work, and that push you to think about the impossible. Then we have builders. Builders, they develop, right? They develop, they organize, they implement ideas that are super, super creative. Like, literally, if they can come up with a title for something, it can even be a title. Like, hey, how should I name this workshop? This, because they just have these incredible ideas out of nowhere, and they are able to help you, or themselves, they can do, develop these things from just a thought to an actual visible project, initiative, whatever it is. So they are also very much knowledgeable about resources. They use those resources to build, develop, implement all of these ideas collectively. Very important. Builders are not these individual, just individual with an individual mindset. They have a collective mindset. They build with people. Then we have caregivers. And I am one of this. I am a caregiver. So caregivers, they are nurturers. They enjoy being around people, and they create and sustain community, and they think about joy and connection, right? They think about intentionally about how to create spaces that build care, a culture of care. So for instance, I think a lot about community care. So when we think about community care, we think about taking care of each other and understanding that if we move forward, like I said, we move forward together. And so what is that interdependence? How does that look like for us? And I'm gonna talk about that a little bit more when I talk about healers. Because caregivers also have a tendency to fall in the category of healers. Then we have disruptors, and we touched on that a little bit in the beginning. So disruptors are also seen in the media as, you know, the activists. These these are the people who are the activists, right? Seen in the media. But disruptors are people who take very uncomfortable and risky actions. Okay, so these are the people who you can see also in marches, rallies, and protests, literally at the front lines. Like they literally put their bodies at risk. The ones getting arrested at the protest, yep. Disruptors, they go all out. You see them getting literally, I'm not even joking, shot. Like they are able to take those risks with this for the sake of shaking up the status quo, right? To build power, to raise awareness. Then we have healers. So healers recognize the intergenerational trauma that exists in this society because of not only the historical aspect, you know, the history, especially in this country, but also the present, what is happening now, and how these things work together to create this, basically a culture of trauma, right? Now, here's the wonderful part about healers, and I am one, I just call myself wonderful because I am a healer, but not to brag, but healers, they do community care, which I spoke about earlier with caregivers. Community care is about holding systems accountable for our well-being. So we move from the idea of self-care to say, okay, yeah, I do have to take care of myself. And why is it that I have to take care of myself, right? Why is it, right? Because I'm a human. And also, is my workplace exploiting me? Am I working more than 40 hours a week, answering emails during the weekend? Why is that? So what is exactly wrong there? Is it me or the system I'm under? So healers really look deeper than the individual and the surface. They move from individual responsibility to systemic responsibility by looking at oppressive systems, institutions, policies, and practices. So instead of what's wrong with me, what is wrong with the system? Then we have storytellers. Oh my gosh, so important, so important. And this role has been going on forever, okay? Indigenous practice of storytelling. Who are the people who basically preserve the history? And I'm not talking about the history of pain, I'm talking about the history of joy, of the wonderful culture, the many cultures that we have. So these are people who not only share community stories of resilience and strength and all of these things, but they're also the artists. They're also the musicians, right? Musician artists, they are part of the movement. They are telling stories through their paintings, to their graphic designs, to their songs, to their poems. All of these things are a tool of activism. Even jewelry, right? I have the, you know, these earrings as well. All of these things tell a story. All of these things, again, are valuable sources of activism. Because not only are they basically spreading stories from generation to generation, right? They are preserving history, right? And then lastly, we have guides. The guides are the teachers, the counselors, the advisors. They have this gift of just sharing wisdom in a way that builds community. So I have a friend who she's so good, because when there's like Facebook fights, right, about social justice topics, she comes in and she has just a way of reflecting and saying, and the paraphrasing and the summarizing and saying, yeah, so what I am seeing is this. So and so is looking this from this, might be looking from this thing from this lens, and you might be looking at this from this lens. And so how do we find this common ground, right? And in the most beautiful way, they ask these beautiful open-ended questions that make you reflect about your intersectionality and just the world. And they just have that. They just have that ability, right? I am gonna stop there because I have been talking a lot. And I am going to stop sharing and say, before we go to the last part of the dialogue, what are your first impressions about this? Literally, like, what are your impressions? What are the things going through your head right now? I do see one question here. Where will allies fit on this list? Oh, they fit in all of them. You feel in any of the ones that they decide to choose. Yeah. Because it all depends on, and that's actually a question in the last part about privilege and power and all, and where does that fit in these roles. So that's actually a perfect question. Yeah. But first, I want to know, what are your first impressions? Like, I see a comment saying, I haven't seen the description and characteristic of the roles of an activist before. This is so awesome. Me neither. This is such valuable information, right? So I didn't either until a year ago. I am so glad. I am inspired. I am so glad that you're feeling that way. Yeah. So I think it would be, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to share it because I did write it on the chat, but it was my first time actually seeing the description of each role, because I knew that there's different ways to be an activist, but I don't think I ever seen a title, right? Like the healer and the storyteller. I was like, wow, that makes such a difference, because I also believe, I started my activism back in 2014. The first time I showed up to an event, hold a sign, and I was just there for a whole hour. I was like, okay, this is it. All the way to where I'm at now, right? Where I'm actually able to be doing so much amazing work with Ignite, but it's just really eye-opening to see the descriptions and where we all land, and probably, like you share, right? We've been an activist for a while, but we just never really identify ourselves as such. So I think those are my first reactions to what you show us. It was amazing to watch.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. And I want to add two things. One, you don't need to choose one. You can fall in multiple of these, categories, or labels, whatever we want to call it, and you can fall under this depending on a time in your life, right? Maybe you were a disruptor before and now you're not, for whatever reason. It's just, it's very flexible, it's very dynamic, right? And the other point that I want to make is that you don't have to be part necessarily of an organization to do any of these things, right? So for instance, as a healer, back in the summer, what I decided to do, once I read the document, once I found out about this document, I intentionally created messenger rooms 3 days a week. And I offer them, and I was like, hey, I'm here in this messenger room for an hour. If you want to come in and talk about anything you want, I'm here. And that was my activism this summer of 2020, right? So it doesn't have to, you don't have to be affiliated with a nonprofit or anything like that. If you are, that's awesome, right? But you don't have to create a business like I did. You don't have to create an LLC. These are things that you do, that you just do, right? There are things that you just do because you want to, and it gives you joy, and it's important to you, right? So I am aware of time. So I am gonna move on to the last section. And these are just a couple of questions. And I am not expecting us to answer every single of these questions right now. This is just a starting point for us to keep reflecting on these roles, right? So the first question says, what roles do you feel comfortable and natural playing? So what are, like just having read the definitions or the descriptions, where do you see, like, do you see yourself in one of these, in many of them? And have you, you have already maybe put the work into these roles? Are they natural? Are you intentionally making an effort to fit these roles? Why? And I love this question. What roles make you come alive? What a wonderful question. And I think this is a question that we should ask ourselves multiple times. In my suicide prevention work, I ask the question, what makes life worth living? I ask that question all the time. And so if one of the answers to that question is your activism work, you probably should continue doing it. So yeah, what roles make you come alive that you say, yes, this world is pretty messed up, yet this work makes me want to continue in this world, makes me continue, or it gives me the motivation to keep going. Are there any differences between these two responses? Like, think about it. Because just because you're good at something doesn't mean that you should continue doing it if it doesn't bring you joy. So really, we have decisions here. We have a decision to make. Are we, maybe you are a caregiver, maybe you identify as a caregiver, but are you just doing so because, well, you just, that's who you are, right? This is natural thing for you. Or are you just doing it because you're good at it, you have been told that you're good at it? Oh, you're good at that, you should be doing that, and you just do it? Or are you doing these roles because you actually enjoy doing them, and it seems even effortless at times, right? Because you just love it so much, and it's just part of your life. Then asking ourselves, what is the impact of playing these roles on us physically, in our energy, our emotions, spiritually, right? Because, for instance, for frontliners and disruptors, that takes a lot of energy. And that is one of the reasons why I am not a disruptor. I am not a frontline responder. I don't have that type of physical energy, right? So I made the intentional decision to not join any protests or marches or rallies. And right now, I am not joining any rallies or anything like that. So my type of, for instance, my form of allyship with the Asian community is not going to the protests and rallies. It's things like, for instance, sharing the resources that are available. That is my form of activism. I am aware of resources. I have access to resources. And so I share them across social media, right? That's my form of activism when it comes to the Asian community. I see some comments. I think the greatest thing you cannot touch on is the importance of not having to stick to one single title in order to consider yourself an activist. Yes, it doesn't limit us to one role. Can we get the name of this article? Oh, yes, I'm going to be sharing the link. Yes, don't worry about, I'm going to be sharing the link soon. And then I remember the question about allyship, like, where does this fall? It can fall in any of these roles. And that is why we ask the question, how does your role connect to your privilege and power, right? Because, and I spoke about in my introduction about the different privilege identities that I hold, and that is extremely important. Just like we are aware of our oppressed, marginalized identities, we also should be aware of the identities that are privileged. How are we using that in these roles? Are we even talking about privileged identities? Are we ashamed of them? Do we feel guilty about them and maybe we're not sharing them? Well, we have to look at that. We have to look at that. So, and one thing that specifically we should look at when talking about allyship, or many people call themselves accomplices or co-conspirators, when you're looking at these roles, are you taking too much space because of that exact privilege and power that you have? Well, maybe you're not taking enough. Maybe the power and privilege that you have, maybe you think, oh crap, am I actually using it as much as I think I am using it, right? For, of course, for the goal of emphasizing the current movements that are happening, right? So basically, thinking about all of these things, that takes a while. For instance, this question about privilege and power took me years. It took me years to come into terms about having privilege, because I have been so used to identifying myself as someone who has been oppressed that I honestly didn't want to think about my privileges. And of course, I have come to terms with it, because it is part, I believe it is my responsibility to use that power. So yeah, these are questions. We're obviously not gonna take 10 minutes to write the answers on our own, because we are out of time, but I am going to be giving you the link to the map to this awesome document. There are a bunch of other questions on that document that we can use collectively to, keep reflecting on this content. I reckon I get enough of these. Thank you so much for that. That totally made probably my whole year. I'm gonna think about all of these comments. Yeah. So here is the link to this guide. It's just awesome. I'm really eternally grateful to Deepa for creating that. For creating, awareness really about all of the types of activism that exists. And just to finish up, please feel free to keep in contact with me. Feel free to, contact me on Facebook, LinkedIn, following the different, social medias for Estoy Aquí. I'm always open to, grow my community, to collaborations as well. If you want to collaborate in some way, I'm here. I'm always on Facebook. So if you contact me on Facebook via Messenger, I will answer. I'm always there. Yes, can we connect with you? This is my ID. Yeah. Feel free to click on my Instagram link and follow me there as well. Just, a quick announcement. In the summer, I'm gonna be releasing a public health program called La Cultura Sana, Reclaiming Our Roots. And that's part of my healing, right? My caregiving activism. And that is gonna be about spreading awareness about the cultural system we already have that work towards increasing our mental health, like barbers, hairstylists, librarians. So I'm gonna be building this training program for them to talk about suicide, to talk about mental health, and how they can use their roles, right? Those are also activist roles, by the way, especially barbers. Historically in the Black community, they are activists. So spreading awareness about their role in healing. That's gonna be key in the summer. So yeah, that's me. That's this, yeah. So I hope that you had a great time, and yeah. Are there any? Oh, I see your email. Okay, I'm gonna save your email because you don't have social media. Okay, awesome. Oh, I didn't put my email there. That's so, have to put, yes. Okay, let me put my email here too. Yes. So what was I saying? Yeah, so do you have, let's do something. Do you have a takeaway word or sentence? So how do you feel? How do you feel right now? One word or a couple of words? I feel grateful.
I feel empowered.
Wonderful.
Yeah, someone said it earlier, but inspired and empowered for sure.
Awesome. Yeah.
I also feel very inspired and acknowledged. I feel like, especially when you brought up the identities, I'm like, okay, like I can identify with them. It's just really like made me feel acknowledged and empowered. So thank you for
Awesome.
this.
Well,
and yes, your energy is very contagious, Isabel. So
thank you.
sharing your energy with us today, because I took it all.
Oh, that's oh wow. I really appreciate those comments. I really do. I like you are, like you are, we are making an effort, right, to be here and sharing information with everyone, which form of activism.
Hey.
Already, well, have a nice day.
Can we take a quick picture before everybody heads out? Is that okay
sure.
with everybody?
Yeah.
Awesome. So we're here. Here we are. Okay, let me do this. 1, 2, 3, and hold on. Okay, now this time for real. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're good.
Awesome. Already.
Hope you enjoy
Have a great rest of your day, ladies.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.